What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Matt Report. Here's a question for you. What does it feel like to sell your business? After running for 10 years in the WordPress space, one of the most prominently known plugin and previously theme businesses, iThemes, has sold to Liquidweb, and I have my good friend Cory Miller on the show today to talk about that, talk about what it's like mentally, emotionally, physically even, to sell your business after running it for nearly a decade with an employee staff and partnership team that feels like family. We're going to talk about all of that stuff, the hows, the whys, the decision process, the emotional roller coaster of running a business in today's world. And Cory is, obviously, if you've known him and you've followed him online, he's an open book. He's a very honest dude. That's why he and I have been friends for quite some time, and he is friends with a lot of people in this space. If you don't know Cory and you're at a WordCamp, go ahead and introduce yourself to him. He's a great guy, and he will share as much as he possibly can to help you along your journey, and I appreciate the time that he spent here. And of course, I appreciate all of the learnings and teachings and advice he has given me through my journey in the WordPress space. So thank you, Cory, for that. It's mattreport.com, mattreport.com/subscribe to join the mailing list. I'm not going to delay it anymore. Let's get right into the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Matt Report podcast. As always, I'm your host, Matt. Today we have another special edition with my good friend, Cory Miller. Cory, welcome back to the program, sir.
Hey, Matt. Thanks to be it's nice to be back on the report here. It's been a while.
I actually think I'd have to go back and just check everything, but this might be your 700th appearance and probably the most interviewed guest on my show. So congratulations on that trophy.
I'll take it. Wow, that's nice. Thank you.
Listen, it's funny that after however long we've known each other, for 5 or 6 years now, that we're both working for hosting companies now. How about that? Who'd have guessed?
Holy cow. See, another thing I didn't even think about. That is cool. Pagely and Liquidweb.
That's awesome. So many folks know you in this audience, but for folks who don't know who you are, what's that 2-minute elevator pitch of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm now the general manager of iThemes. I started the company. I'm the founder back in 2008. We started out doing WordPress themes and then quickly migrated into WordPress plugins and then eventually WordPress SaaS. Today, our biggest products are Backup Buddy, iTheme Security, iTheme Sync, and now iThemes Sales Accelerator. You notice the whole jumble thing, iThemes. And so we have about 22, 23 team members with a headquarters in Oklahoma City, team in Portugal, and 4 people total in Europe. And then we're kind of a blended team. We've got like I said, an office in Oklahoma City, and then half of our team is remote.
I think the title, and I should have done the legwork before I started this episode. I think the title that I had for you when we first did our interview was, how to create or how to start $1 million plugin business. And this is going back, way back when I think, back then your leading product was probably Backup Buddy, and the themes were sort of maybe just stepping to the side a little bit way back then, many years ago at this point. But I'm interested to understand the lay of the landscape as you see it in the plugin business. Again, you've been doing this for a decade. You've hit the big win, as many of us entrepreneurs and business owners sort of strive to. But what's it look like from looking back 5-6 years ago when we had that conversation, and maybe Cory of back then was like, plugins to the moon, but maybe things were a little bit different today. What's that take look like for you?
Yeah, it's there's a big difference from then until now, and even when we started. And the primary difference is, just like you said, we're both working for hosting companies now. And I think it's a good thing, by the way, but hosting is the future of WordPress, specifically in terms of, when I'm saying that, in terms of our business at iThemes. Backups, for instance, a lot of the hosts have started to roll their own backups into their own hosting platform. We partnered with Liquidweb before the acquisition for 2 years to offer iTheme Sync and, of course, tight integrations with all of our products. But, we started seeing this trend of it makes sense for hosting companies to kind of get into that space. But I think the future, it's going to even more and more grow from that base outside of, backup, security, maintenance, things like that. So, it was recognizing, I think, that that's a huge trend. There's a lot of money that has come into WordPress via the hosting companies. Of course, GoDaddy's had several acquisitions. EIG has acquired. Pagely has, I think, pivoted and gone even in a different space and adapted to what's happening in hosting. And Liquidweb, we were actually a customer about 8 years ago, and we knew their reputation before they had an acquisition about 3-4 years ago now. But the alignment just felt right. But with this mega trend, I think what is happening in WordPress, which is hosting. When I say hosting, not just like not great hosting, I'm talking like premier hosting. There's some really good offerings out there now for WordPress websites.
Yeah, I've always said that, or at least the last few years, that that hosts and web hosts, either managed or your sort of shared hosting, really hold the keys to the kingdom in terms of people's expectations of WordPress, and I mean that from like the Jane the blogger, Joe the restaurant owner, the people that make up huge swaths of percentages of WordPress users, not the power users like you and I, maybe even people listening to this show, but they have a chance to affect the experience of WordPress all the way from the onboarding, right? How do you install WordPress? You click this button, and what happens after I click this button? Well, you've got this recommendation list of plugins and themes that you can use, and you sort of get that if you were to download WordPress and install it on your own host without your host intervening. But hosts really hold the power of onboarding the experience of WordPress. And I'm bringing this up because I think that there are a lot of plugin owners, yourself, or plugin companies, yourself and myself to a degree at a very small scale. But many people in between that feel like, well, how do I make that impact? Or how can I have that same sort of control over the customer? This is a long way of me getting to the way that iThemes has done it. And you guys have really built a brand. And I'd imagine Liquidweb looked at your customer base, your marketing, your branding, your email list, and said, you know what? This is what's really valuable. Plugins are super valuable in the income. That's a whole other thing. But if you're not creating that brand and collecting that customer base, you might fall short in saying, hey, my plugin's worth $1 million too. Come buy me. Is that active all the time, or was it like building the brand and the customer base? Is that something that just, look, this is how we had to build our business? I mean, email, social, and webinars. I mean, you guys do it top notch. But was that always active in your head, or were you guys really thinking software? Let's build these awesome features?
So I think some of that, part of the answer is necessity, like building a customer community that was loyal and passionate and loved the company. We always wanted to be a company that was loved and cherished, and that if we happened to go away one day, that they would miss us in a big way. So early on, Jeff over at WP Tavern wrote a post, and I think it was in 2009. He was like, "Is iTheme still around?" And we kind of took that personally. We're like, "What do you mean? We're working our butts off over here." And we changed the way we did things. We were trying to be more public focused, so we started doing things like iThemes TV, which way back in the day was using Ustream and a little chat log. We did that for like 2 straight years. Along the way came webinars, and that's part of my DNA is learn and grow, teach and share. And but it was all built in with this focus of how do we create this compelling company that people would miss if we weren't here anymore. So I would say necessity is every day for 10 years, it seemed like there was a new competitor popping up, particularly in the theme world. For the first 5 years, it was take WP and add an adjective in front of it or behind it, .com was popping up. And, we just wanted to keep making ourselves impactful and different. And that's where some of the things you mentioned have evolved along the way. So, with a big company coming in, let's say like GoDaddy, for instance, how do we, we've always said you need 2 things to buy our products, WordPress and hosting. So GoDaddy's got big enterprise, right? So how do we compete when we don't have money, for instance, or another competitor in our space, like a backup competitor or something like that? So what makes us different? And we always just try to be I love Liquidweb's new tagline, the most helpful humans on the planet, because it syncs with how we've tried to be very personable, genuine people, and then help, make people's lives awesome is kind of our tagline, right? So I think that was just necessity of saying, like, I love my job and I want to do this job for as long as I possibly can. and it was, kind of job security.
Yeah. I think it's funny, or just, I don't know, maybe funny is the wrong word, but I hear you say that sort of necessity to stay top of mind. And when you hear, people like Jeff at the tavern, not maliciously, but just say, hey, is iTheme still in business? You take that personally because you're like, I mean, yeah, we're over here building. Like, you should see all the stuff we have in our crazy secret lab. But I think a lot of us get caught up with that even today. And I think that's what's funny is a lot of developers, they sort of happen upon becoming this WordPress entrepreneur. They built a little product one day, people got interested, and somebody said, hey, you can make money doing this. So they slapped a price tag on it. And then suddenly they find themselves with 5 employees and they're like, holy shit, how did I get here? What do I do next?
Yep.
So many people are so many people are afraid to bring some transparency into their business, not numbers, but like who they are and like what they stand for. And you do a really good job about that or with that. What kind of advice do you give people who are like, I'm afraid to talk about myself. I'm afraid to tell my story. How do you tell people? Because I think it's a huge part of how you've ended up where you are today.
Yeah. I want to give a disclaimer before I give my answer is that, as I've been more and more transparent and vulnerable and open and personable and all that kind of stuff, wasn't just like day one for me. It was over time and feeling confident where I was and secure where I was, my place in the world, my place with my family, my wife, our company, whatever that was. So I want to give that disclaimer, but I think from the beginning is just trying to be who you are to other people. And hopefully that means for me is a nice guy, a generous person, somebody that's willing to listen more than talk. And so I think for me, as the years went on, over 10 years, was just being more confident in who I was and being okay with what you see is what you get. Like this is, and I want to be real. It's like how I treat the waitress or waiter at lunch today, or from a customer I meet at a work camp to our team member is I wanted to here's the overarching thing is I'm going to use everything I can at my disposal to be different and be more valuable, as a company. And I think that personally and as a company was a key to this, but it's just being more secure in who I was and confident and saying, what you see is what you get. And, but the vulnerable and transparent thing I think you're alluding to is some of the talks I've done on mental health. That was just saying like, I've been through a set period of time, hard times, had healed through that, and then thought, okay, if I can share my story to help somebody else, I want to do that. And I think that becomes, as I've experienced my version of success, my definition of success is wanting to share and help other people, no matter where they are. Not trying to judge where other people are, but just saying, like, if you're going through a hurt, I went through a hurt. If my story helps you, I want to do that. As it translates to business, is mostly just listening to stories. Our customers would come up and say, hey, we love your product back, buddy, or whatever it was. It'd be great. And then that next couple of sentences would probably be like, here's how that helped me. Here's what I'm doing with my life in my business because of what you guys are doing. And I was like, man, that's different. That's like, profit is a necessity in business, or else it's a hobby, right? But the next level is purposeful profit, like getting to this level where you're able to help people's dreams come true. And so I just felt like, yeah, at the end of the day, it's a competitive advantage. I feel like if somebody's not willing to be open and transparent and vulnerable and listen to people, then I'm going to be the person that does that, because that is part of who I am.
Yeah.
But so
I was listening to, and I find myself in these positions, and let's have a little therapeutic moment right now. I find myself in these positions. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and his internet marketer / SEO guy. Yeah, he's had some pretty good success. He's written some books. He gets found for his particular sort of vertical that he serves. And the interviewer was asking him how he sort of built his big business and his practice, and it was all just like, here's my first thing is I got 100 reviews on Google, and then I took those reviews and I turned them into blog posts, and then I took those blog posts and I turned them into podcasts, and it was always like this like systematic, programmatic approach to like building a business, when he's like, I sat down and made my 6-month content marketing plan. I used these keywords. I did some, research on like what people were searching. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, but God, I'm like, man, I see the success that you get from it, and that's amazing. And I'm just not like that. Like, I feel like I take this slow road to success, but it builds great relationships with the people. Up until this point, 10 years going into it, I mean, you are one of the biggest WordPress software companies. How did you deal with that jealousy when you see these people who are just like, trying to just slam in performance and make developers work, but they're making boatloads of money at the same time? Like, how did you balance the emotional roller coaster ride of that?
I was wondering if you're going to head that direction. So I dealt with my own version very early on in our business history with bitterness, jealousy, and envy. And I think that's a progression: jealousy, envy, and then getting to this bitter stage. And what had happened with me was, I think I had been so consumed with what other people were doing, I forgot the value I had in what we were doing. And it was a distraction. It was, and it led to bitterness, and I didn't like myself, And so I would go, man, I feel like, yeah, we do 10 times better than they do as far as like the quality of what we do. And maybe they're adding just a smoke flare with marketing. They're better marketers than we are. And I let that really rob joy and focus and passion. And I don't know. I think it was just getting to the point where like I didn't like who I was because I was being a bitter person, and had to realize it's not about them. It's about me and the people with me. And that was kind of a turning point where I said, maybe I need to stop looking at Twitter so much in certain, if I'm getting there. So maybe I didn't put people on lists and let them kind of be a part of the feed, and somebody would say that. But I went through a bad phase, Matt, and it was probably in the first 2-3 years of our business where I just wasn't me, and I didn't like myself. And I was like, gosh, I think it was back to being myself again. Maybe this is that theme of the interview, being myself and being confident in who I was and valuing who I was. And it's still tempting, it's still tempting to want to go, gosh, that's great. But I just found so much more value in going, it's not about them, it's about me and us. And the simplified version is, I think I had to go through this dark time and let it almost engulf me to realize I'd hit bottom with it and go, that's not the way I want to live my life. And it's been so much more free for me to live without that crap in my life. Not that I don't have those things flare up, but like on a consistent basis where it just like clouds everything, which is unhealthy.
And all of this is building up to the business is just woven into the fabric, of your life. I mean, it's not something, and I could be putting words in your mouth of this, but I don't see iThemes as, okay, work is over there, iThemes is over there, and you clock out at 5 o'clock and you go home to your family. It's the family is iThemes for you, right? Probably to a certain extent. How do you wrestle with selling the baby? Like how did that all, I know you're very close to your business partner. Did you go and meet with Matt for a while and just say, here's what's cooking? What do you think? What's that roller coaster? What was that part of the roller coaster ride look like when you're making that decision to say, 10 years, a decade of this, do I let it go? Do I keep it going? How's that feel?
Yeah. The fear and uncertainty of it all was big, right? When the opportunity presented itself, it was the right time for us. Looking off into the horizon. Now we're good, now, but looking off in the horizon and seeing the things that were moving. And then when Liquidweb said, hey, we'd like to make you an offer for the business, it was a time of like, and I've had months to process all of this, had my ups and downs with it, but going like, when the bottom line for it is, it's the future for all of us here. And all of us together with this big vision together, which was really inspiring for me. But one of the key things, of course, is, what happens to my family, but the other question was, what happens to my bigger extended family? Because these are my friends, I haven't spent as much time with all of them necessarily, but I've spent quality time with them where I think I care about them. I want to make sure they have a bright future. And I've heard dozens and dozens of terrible and ridiculously bad stories. And I feel at the end of the day, along with some counsel, my partners, obviously, and, with Matt, is like, this was the best decision for all of us. And the first question after it, what's in it for me, is, Cory, what are you doing? I've got that question a dozen times. It's probably the second question I get is, what about you? And I go, well, hey, I happen to love my work. I love the people I work with and I love the people I serve. And I've never had any illusions of wanting to sit on the beach anyway. Um, and this was the future work for me, like with a bigger focus, like Liquidweb and what they present and offer to what we could do, and we've never been able to do as a bootstrap company is terribly exciting. So, first and foremost, we want to make sure the team had a home, and Liquidweb, the execs, and the whole team was very vocal about saying, number one, we think this is awesome. We want to keep it awesome. That means we want to keep you guys and your products. And I go, what about me? Do you want me? I mean, my dear friend Chris Lema is a VP of Products and Innovation. Like, okay, what about me? What do you want me to do? And they're like,
We had a couple buckets and brooms you can use, Cory. Here you go.
Exactly. Yeah, I should change my hip chat status to that.
Yeah.
But it was very much like, no, we want all of you guys, and it was a different, compelling story than what I've heard in a lot of bad stories. And I go, this feels right. There was this point, because I've seen friends of mine go through the transition of selling their businesses and losing a part of their identity as part of that. But I had so much prep, and I've had so many good friends that are, my business group here in Oklahoma City has been incredible to go to kind of prepare myself for that. Okay, so what does it look like? When I come to the office, turn my key, and when I feel like it's not mine, and to be honest, now it's only been a week now. It's not much different. Maybe my title changed, and I'm working with a new set of brilliant people. I go, I don't want that feeling to change, no matter if it is mine on a legal piece of paper or not. I still want to feel involved, and a week into it, I still feel not much changed. When the team has asked what's going to change, I said not much. We have a track record of 10 years. Like you said, we have a brand, we have products that people love. It's a 1 + 1 = 3, truly, and that's why I felt good ultimately, and I sleep well at night. Knowing like I've got a gig here that I'm even more. It's great to get back to the business and not the whole deal part of it, because it's given me a renewed energy and focus on like, hey, we do have a great thing, and now we got this bigger family we joined, and the values and very much aligned between Liquidweb and I. So and iThemes. So it's been ups and downs. I won't lie to you about that. Ups and downs emotionally.
How long was the decision process? Like, if you can say, like, was it 2 months ago they came to you, 6 months ago? Like, how long did it take you to mull over this decision?
Yeah, months in the process. But really, the initial conversations, not necessarily buying us, but partnering, started almost 2 years ago with Joe Osterling, the CTO, and that kind of morphed. So it wasn't like knock on the door, hi, I'm Liquidweb, can I buy you, kind of thing. And then, a year ago, my dear friend Chris joined the staff, so like joined the team as one of their leaders, and so that only made it even better. And so, yeah, it wasn't like a knock. It was a slow process. And I really give kudos to that team because, and particularly Joe and Chris, because it was, let's partner, let's make this win-win for everybody, see how it goes, and if it can be successful. And then at some point they said, we'd like to pull you guys under our umbrella. And it was just, but it wasn't like a, cold call knock on the door. It was a process of really spending time with Jim Geiger, their CEO, their CFO, Terry Flood, who championed the deal, Joe, who really, led the project, and having those, some of those guys in my home, like Jim has been in my home. We've had dinner together and got to spend some real time where it wasn't just like a transaction. It was a transaction, right? But it wasn't just a cold thing. It was no human beings. And I respect those, the ladies and gentlemen that are in the leadership team at Liquidweb, because they're just like, it felt like, similar people, good people,
What about the plugin space or even the WordPress software space? If somebody out there is, let's say, half the size of iThemes, let's say they do backup, and I have nobody in mind, I'm just randomly throwing this out there. Let's say they have, Matt's backup plugin. iThemes has, let's say, 1 million customers, and this plugin has 500,000 customers. What's the one thing out on the landscape that you could say is, what? This bit of the plugin business, this bit specifically about the WordPress plugin business, it's going to be difficult for people for the next year or 2 years. Is it automatic? Is it the direction of where WordPress is going with Gutenberg? Is there something that you saw out on the ocean, out on the sea of navigating these waters that you said, that's going to be a tough one to go at it if you didn't have Liquidweb or another big umbrella company behind you to really spearhead those challenges?
Yeah, I'm not a prophet, but I feel like there's going to be even more consolidation in the space. I remember one of the first companies to be acquired was Mojo Marketplace with our friends Brady and JR back in the day. Then another big splash was, of course, WooCommerce, WooThemes, WooCommerce with Automatic. And, Automatic has what I seem to read about as a war chest to go acquire companies. The hosting companies, of course, have, I think, more money than us bootstrapped companies in the space. So I think there's going to be, my intuition is there's going to be more consolidation around that. Automatic's always interesting. I think we all like to daydream because it's like, man, this, amazing, cool company. What could they do? What could they do? If I was a part of that, what could they do? And I always kind of interesting. Matt always surprises me in what he does. Like the WooCommerce, had no clue that. I mean, it made sense. I was like, oh man, that's a brilliant decision. But I had no idea that would happen. So I think it's more for me. The playbook is more with the hosting companies and what they're doing. But I still think though there's going to be space for the solutions that help people that might not be 50 people or even 20 people, but somebody out there doing great work for this particular need. But over time, I feel like we've got a lot of competition in WordPress, outside of WordPress, excuse me, Squarespace, Wix, Weebly, all those kind of things you hear about. It's a different day in WordPress. WordPress is awesome. I love WordPress. I would much prefer to use WordPress over those other platforms. But for a lot of users, it's easier to just log in and not have to worry about certain things. So that just kind of leads me back down to the path of who's the natural person to provide that. And, it's hosting companies to me.
You can choose to edit this part out of the, I'll edit it out for you if you want, but you had an e-commerce solution called Exchange. Didn't go so hot, nope. Right? It's okay for me to say that?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's go for it, man. I don't really have anything to hide.
But more recently, and I want to get to this too, you sort of, is it acquired is the right word for the team in Portugal?
Yes.
Yeah. So acquired the team in Portugal, and then you had a sort of renewed focus on e-commerce, which was WooCommerce. What was the strategy around that, or what is the strategy around that? Was, you had Exchange, maybe didn't go so hot, but e-commerce you knew is, hey, that's a big target. So we're going to just sort of circle the wagons and sort of attack WooCommerce from a different perspective. How did that shake out? Like, how did you even think about going after that market, and more specifically with the team in Portugal?
Let me back up and say one comment about what you said, because you're like, we can edit this out, and I'm like, no, because failure is simply an investment in learning and growth. And so I'm not embarrassed about Exchange. Maybe wish it cost us less for that particular learning experiment, but I'm not embarrassed because we took a chance and we invested money on an idea we thought would be successful. It didn't work out, but I don't live in mistakes. I want to view, our team, I don't want them to live in mistakes and wallow in mistakes and not be bold to try something new. And that's how the best ideas here didn't come from me. They came from other people. And so that's why I'm not embarrassed about that. So back to Sales Accelerator and our team in Portugal that is the team that runs that. I think that was a learning lesson off of Exchange of going, when WooThemes forked Jiggle Shop, went with WooCommerce and built that up, what a brilliant decision, Now, we have had our share of successes and our share of failures, not all of which people know about, right? But that particular decision for them was a mega home run grand slam, right? So seeing the popularity where you hear numbers of that, how WooCommerce is growing faster than WordPress, it was kind of this backup idea is, why didn't we just, instead of building an exchange, we could have maybe just built onto a great growing platform. And those guys in Portugal had a great vision for WooCommerce. They built stores that have multi million euros, not dollars, running over there. And it was really cool. And so that was kind of an exciting part of saying, okay, what new is there? What the landscape in WordPress, what could we carve out? We felt strongly, particularly with that team of just good people, that we could make a run at that. Now it's even better.
How does a guy from Oklahoma end up in Portugal, fall in love with the place? And by the way, I'm Portuguese. Anybody that doesn't know, my VP of sales at my VP of sales at Pagely, Sean, he actually just moved to Portugal because he loved Portugal, and he's been all over the world. He's traveled all over the world, every country you can remote work from. He's gone to, and he decided on Portugal as his final destination. How did you find a team in Portugal, and how did you work with them being in Oklahoma? The whole trust thing, are things getting done? Two different cultures and languages. How did that all unravel?
So this is one of my favorite stories. I'm so glad you asked about that because not many people know about it. But so we decided we wanted to 3 years ago now, we wanted to live a month in Europe. And so we were looking at Spain, and we thought, Portugal, we'll go Portugal, a smaller country, and we can explore deeply and everything. So we spent 30 days there, and at the end of I had went to a co-working facility to work, keep doing what I was doing, because the idea was to live, not just visit, live there and really immerse ourselves in the culture. The last day, well, halfway through there, I went to the co-working facility, met a great WordPress guy that was the WordPress meetup user, and he was like, I know iThemes. I know you guys. Would you like to speak to our user group? And I was like, heck yeah, I'd love that. That night we met the most amazing friends. Like they took us out, they showed us wine. We had to get up at like 4 a.m. in the morning, and they were like, no, do you want to see the best, have the best wine and go eat in the best places? We're like, yes, we don't care how late it is. But it's a principle we've developed now, Lindsay and I, is make friends everywhere. And I regret that we didn't make those friends first day because, man, I don't know if we'd ever left, by the way. So one of the people we met was named Marco. And so I'm going to WordCamp. So just making friends, right? And they just showed us this amazing time. And so I'm going to WordCamp US not the second one in Philly. So over a year ago. And I get this Facebook message introduced to me to this guy named Marco, introduced me to this guy named Marcel. Hey, you guys got to meet. Cory's good. Marcel's awesome. And so Matt and I are walking on the corner, and I hear, hey, excuse me, is your name Cory Miller? And I was like, yeah, yes. Well, nice to meet you. Through that process, again, I meet more of my Portuguese countrymen and women. And, we had this fabulous time with Marcel. And then he was sharing, of course, what he was doing. And I said, oh, you got to meet Sam Hotchkiss here over here at Jetpack. You got to meet my friend Chris Lim over here. You got to meet. And we just showed him some good old Oklahoma hospitality. And he was sharing what he was doing. And along the way, I got to lend this idea to my friend Chris Lim. He was like, hey, you should really explore about seeing if they want to, partner up with you. So in about 2 weeks' time, we ended up in Porto, Portugal, where they're headquartered. Got to know Nuno, Tiago, and Marcel even better. They showed us the time of our lives over in that city, amazing city. And it was all, in long story short, we were able to find a deal together and work together. And it was all because it's just the principle of make friends everywhere that led to that. Good people. And of course, just like you, you're actually a Portuguese descent, right? I'm adopted. I am forcefully adopting myself as a Portuguese person. We love that country. And I think it's just shared values. They're just really awesome. The Portuguese people are just so fantastic. It's like a hidden gem that I like to brag about, but I also say, hold on, I want it all myself. But that's how that kind of developed. And it was just the magical thing of looking back and going, if you're just a good person and you like people and you're willing to like share and introduce people and hear their stories, that really good things can come out of that. And that's one of my favorite stories of our team.
Cory, a year from now, still loving WordPress in the WordPress ecosystem, or Cory's doing humanity work, nonprofit stuff? What's next? I guess I should say. Will there ever be another thing that you're passionate about, sort of outside the realm of WordPress?
I hope I never want to just disengage from my time and experience in the community and the amazing friends I've made over 10, 12 years now in WordPress. I hope I don't ever want to say I'm not going to be a part. I hope I never say that. It's a part of my history. It's a part of my life, that has been an incredible part of my life, and I hope it is for a long time. So for that, just say, I hope not, but I hope I'm never saying I want to just get out of the WordPress. I always have this affinity toward building websites and blogging and doing all that kind of stuff. So a year from now, like I want this to be the same great job it's been for 10 years, doing even bigger, bolder, broader work with this company and this team called Liquidweb. With my team here too, see these things grow together. And I keep saying, this is the way I think of it. It's just a long book, and one chapter closed that happened to be the one where it has several chapters in it. I started and I went through these things, and then chapter 10 or whatever it would be is, we were acquired by Liquidweb, but the story is still written, and I'm very committed to making sure the story is just better and together with these amazing people, and it just kind of grows and goes beyond that. So as far as nonprofit work, we did that, a part of the business, and still have it. It's called The Div here in Oklahoma City, providing technology education to kids. So that's still going. In fact, the executive director is 2 doors down from me here, and I was just talking to her today about raising money for our summer camp. So, I don't really have any big aspirations other than I like this job. My thought was always, every year, is I want to keep this job as long as I can. And now I still have it. It's just a different title. And I'm actually a W-2 employee now. So, but the other thing is, I think the way I've approached this too, Matt, is adapt or die. And it has to be every area of my life, and this is a different adaptation for me, I try to say adjustments versus change, because everybody's spooked by change, but it's adjustments. But regardless, we were going to have to change and adjust. And so I'm looking at this positively. Like, I have a ton to learn from their executive team. They have so much experience and really care about what they're doing. I have so much to learn from there, and I want to learn. And I want to take what we've done to the next level and grow personally. From a bootstrap company now, wow, they've got some big, bold plans, and I'd like to see where that goes. So that's my plans for the foreseeable future. And then I get to do it with more friends like Chris Lemma. He's been here this whole week. I get to, actually work with him. And by the way, my wife, who is on his team. So now we're, employees together. So, it's not a part of strangers. It's people we know and love and trust.
That's a whole new chapter for your book right there, working with your wife, right? And that's gonna let me know when that one gets written.
I keep telling Chris, just make sure it's not working for her, because I see the writing on the wall here. She's going to be my boss at some point.
I'll tell you,
she's extremely talented.
I'll tell you that was the biggest, or is still. I mean, it still continues to be the biggest eye opener. For me, working at Pagely, is when you join a team, like, you always hear it, right? I mean, you say it, I interview you say, I've got a great team. And, maybe back when you and I interviewed together, it was like 20, maybe your team had 20, 25, 30 people on it. We always hear this. It's like, I work with a great team. And then you go and you experience another team, maybe a bigger team, people that are doing bigger things. You always hear, like, it's so amazing, but no, it really is. Like, it's not, it's not like, it's weird to hear it and people just say it and like, yeah, they have an amazing team. But until you actually like join it and learn a new system, a new process, the way that, a hosting company, let's say, is experiencing WordPress, or giving the experience of WordPress to customers that you've never seen before, it is eye-opening. And like you said, it's not letting go of WordPress. It is that new chapter. And it allows you to do more things to serve your customer, to serve your audience, which is amazing. I think that as sort of the last question as we wrap up, and this is a deeper philosophical question. I feel I really don't even know how to ask this question. You'd probably be the only person I would ask this question to, but I feel like there's so many relationships made because of WordPress, WordCamps and meetups and podcasts and blogs and interviews and Twitter, that I'm kind of, I guess I would say, kind of afraid of what happens if WordPress ever goes away. Like, do we lose those connections, right? You and I are always talking more through Twitter. Maybe it's this audio conversation here. Very rarely, maybe once a year, do we see each other in person. What happens if WordPress goes away, right? So I have this, I guess, love-hate relationship with it, where it's like, yeah, I'd love to do something greater of the Matt Report, not just talk about WordPress, but at the same time, God, I just value those relationships that I have with people so much. And it's just weird to live in a world of bits and bytes, and that's the way we communicate all the time. And what happens when it goes away? What happens if I don't hear from Cory ever again? That kind of thing, These are deeper philosophical things. I don't know if you have an answer for it, but it's certainly one that's always in the back of my mind in this community because we build such rich relationships.
Yeah, I think no matter what happens, friendships stay. But, the true resonating friendships, like I've been friends with Lisa Saban Wilson for almost 10 years now. She was just texting me about wanting to come down and help me plant a garden in April. We just made plans. And we haven't got to talk a lot in the last couple of months, and I was just like so thankful for these deep friendships. But, I want to compare it to when we're talking to our team about what was getting ready to happen. And they're like, but we love being iThemes. And I said, hold on. Nothing will ever change the fact that no matter where, if it's a name on a building or a group of a business, whatever that is, like an address that you go to every day, nothing will ever change the idea of this group of friends, people. No one can take that away from us. They're not going to, but no one can take that away from the special bonds that we have. And I apply that to WordPress. No matter what happens, no one will take away the special things that brought us together, maybe titled WordPress, or Pagely, or the Matt Report, or, whatever that is. I don't think that changes things. Proximity is hard, right? Because, you're friends with the people that's proximity, and, now you have kids just like me, and like, that's a time investment. But I think nothing can change the deep relationships that we have each other, except if we decide not to. Now, I'm not the best at keeping in touch with friends, but through all of the process that I've been through in 10 years and just recently is going like, I cling to, the software is awesome. What we did at iThemes was awesome, but it was the people that made the difference. And that goes for WordPress. Rebecca Gill, Carrie Deals, the amazing, incredible people I've met and get to call friends that are so talented and do cool stuff. Man, I hope nothing ever changes that. But what brought us together was this thing called WordPress. So like that can never be changed. And I do think too, so if the technology changes or whatever, that we have to go together, because what's the most powerful thing beyond the software is really the community behind it. There's nothing like this. I've not seen anything like this. You could say Sturgis and Harley Davidson, the Apple stuff, but like people volunteer their time to gather people together, to patch software code, to support people in the forums, whatever it is. And that is incredibly special. And I think no matter what happens with the technology, we all have to move with it together, because we're an incredible group of people called the WordPress community.
Well, Cory, you are an incredible leader in our community. Thanks for everything that you've done up until this point, and everything you have to come in the future. Congratulations on all your success. You and your team wholeheartedly deserve it. Where can folks find you on the web to say thanks?
Probably my blog. I'm going to try to put a little bit more time into my blog, CoryMiller.com. I do it about once a month, but now I'm like, what got me to this space was blogging. So CoryMiller.com without an E in the Cory. That's probably where I would say point people to, because I want to share more experiences like I have. And it's kind of a thing I've missed in the last couple of years, is doing that more regularly. So,
yeah. Happy to see you back in the blogosphere. Everybody else, it's mattreport.com, mattreport.com/subscribe to join the mailing list. It's the number one way to stay connected. We'll see you in the next episode. Hey, everybody. Thanks for sticking around and listening to this episode and supporting the Matt Report for over 5 years now. It's been a pleasure of mine. It was a pleasure to have this guest on today to talk about their business and how they run it. Speaking of business, if you have something you're launching, you have a new website, a new marketing page, a new product, anything that could use a second set of eyes, you can find me at userfeedbackvideos.com. That's userfeedbackvideos.com, where I will review your product, your landing page, your funnel, whatever workflow or starting point you want me to take a look at online. I'll do that. I'll record it. I'll send it to you in a private screencast with my feedback from over a decade of experience in this space, marketing, technology, WordPress, and otherwise. I hope to see you there. It's userfeedbackvideos.com. It's like having a co-founder for $59.